thunder cracked low, rolling across the plains like a warning whispered by God himself. The auction ground set up beneath canvas tarps and lanterns near the edge of Dry Creek stank of wet horses, tobacco spit, and desperation. Rain misted down in a thin sheet, slicking the dust into a slippery paste beneath boot heels. Men crowded close, their faces shadowed under hats and brims, watching as the next lot was dragged forward, not a steer nor a mule, but a child. A girl, barefoot, filthy, maybe 9 or 10, draped in a coat that wasn't hers, sleeves dragging past her hands like dead vines, a rope tied loosely at her wrists. She didn't cry, didn't fight. Just stood there, eyes staring past the crowd as though nothing could touch her anymore. Mute barked the man selling her, Tanner Brixby, a roadhouse trader with teeth like broken glass. Won't talk, won't eat much. Strong little thing. Belonged to a squatter's camp out past Salt Ridge, burnt down 2 nights ago. No survivors. I took her in, now I'm letting her go. No one asked why a man like Brixby had her. No one asked where her parents went. A few coins hit the barrel, then more. A drunk laughed. Hell, she'd make a fine house help or cabin girl for snow season. The laughter that followed turned mean. Just as the gavel lifted, a voice cut through the noise. $10. It wasn't loud, but it was final. The crowd turned. Eli Briggs stepped from the back, face hard as the ridge behind him, coat soaked through a slow tremor in his gloved hand. Brixby squinted. Didn't know you were buying Briggs. Eli's jaw flexed. Wasn't. Till now. Eli Briggs lived 2 miles west of Dry Creek, where the land turned rocky and the prairie dogs outnumbered people by the hundreds. His spread was small. 3 cattle, 1 mare too old for work, and a cabin built with more repairs than timber. Smoke rose from his stovepipe each dawn, steady as a soldier's watch, and disappeared before midday. Folks said he was a man you left alone. Not cruel. Just empty. He came to town for feed and nails, always paid in cash, and never lingered at the saloon. Inside his cabin, tucked behind a loose board under the cot, was a letter written 12 winters ago, its paper yellowed and corners curled. The ink had faded, but the words still carried weight like old footprints in snow. Sarah, I should have gone with you, I should have listened. He never signed it. Just folded it, tucked it away, and kept it like a wound he wasn't ready to heal. Years ago, Eli had been something else. Rode with the Plains Guard, busted whiskey roots, took a bullet through the thigh at Hollow Pike, and fell for a saloon girl named Sarah Crow. She wanted him to leave that life. Wanted a home. But Eli, proud and young, stayed on the trail. By the time he came back to his senses, Sarah had gone. East, some said. Pregnant, others whispered. He never found her. Only got word years later that she'd died in childbirth, some nowhere town beyond the southern ridge. He'd carried that guilt into every dawn since. That night after the auction, the girl sat at the far corner of his cabin, close to the stove, but not close to him. Her coat steamed where the rain had soaked through. She hadn't eaten the cornbread he set out, just clutched it in one hand, staring at the window like she was waiting for someone to burst through it. Eli didn't press her. He didn't even ask her name. Just tossed an extra blanket toward her and set to mending a broken stirrup, pretending like he hadn't just spent most of his savings on a ghost with skin and eyes. The wind howled outside, peeling across the roof like wolves sniffing for rot. Eli poured himself a finger of rye, leaned back in his chair, and studied her. Her eyes were gray, sharp like flint before the spark. Her hair had once been dark, but now hung in dull clumps. No shoes, no pack. Just a rusted tin locket she clutched at night like it could fight off monsters. He didn't sleep that first night. The girl didn't move. He sat by the fire, boots off, hat over his face, but the past gnawed at his chest. He'd seen too many dead girls in this life. Sheriff raids, bandit camps, burnt-out settlements, but something about her silence was louder than any scream. It wasn't fear. It was absence, like whatever made her human had stepped out for a while. In the morning, she followed him outside, barefoot in the frost. He tossed her an old pair of wool socks far too big, and she pulled them on without a word. She stood watching as he fed the mare, eyes fixed on every motion like she was memorizing it. When he turned, she flinched, then stopped herself. That hesitation, barely visible, hit him harder than any bullet. He didn't speak. just nodded once. Went back to work, but as he moved, he caught himself glancing back at her again and again as if trying to remember something he'd buried long ago. By the third day, Eli still hadn't asked her name. It wasn't stubbornness. It was fear that if she answered, she'd become real, and real meant fragile. He told himself she'd be gone soon. Maybe the sisters in Lark Hollow would take her, or the parson's wife 2 counties over who kept strays like cats. But each morning she was there quiet, following at a distance like a stray shadow. She never wandered far. Just watched him muck the stall, chop wood, boil oats. When the wind picked up, she stood behind the doorframe, fingers gripping the edge, eyes locked on the trees like something lived in them. Once when he lit a match to start the stove, she jumped, a silent recoil like her bones remembered fire. He built a stool for her out of scrap pine. Didn't say why. Just left it near the hearth. She sat there that evening, hands folded in her lap locket, pressed tight against her chest. When he passed her a tin cup of broth, she looked up at him like it was the first act of kindness she'd ever seen. She didn't drink right away, just held it, soaking up the heat through her fingers. Later that week, a passing peddler told Eli the girl had come from the Salt Ridge campfire massacre. A group of migrants burned out in the night. Some said it was raiders, others blamed the Split Jaw gang, but no one knew for sure. The girl had been found wandering the ash line, barefoot, no burns, no bruises, just that 1,000-yard stare. Like something worse than death walked right past her and whispered a secret, the peddler said, shaking his head. Eli didn't answer. Just paid for nails and kerosene, then led the mule cart home slower than usual. That night, as he cleaned his rifle out of old habit, the girl picked up one of the spent cartridges from the table, rolled it in her fingers, looked at him, then at the rifle. Not afraid, curious. He reached out slowly, took it back, set it aside. She nodded. Nothing was said, but something shifted between them, quiet as snow. The next day, while chopping wood near the shed, Eli found her inside, fixing the broken latch with one of his old nails. She worked with both hands, precise, no wasted motion. He stepped back, letting her finish. When she was done, she stood there waiting. For what he didn't know. Approval, praise. He didn't have those tools anymore. He just grunted. Good job. She blinked, then just once smiled. It didn't last, but it hit him like a memory half remembered. That night she curled up on the cot without being told, slept with one hand still on the locket. Eli poured another drink, stared into the fire, and wondered how a girl could carry so much silence without breaking. He dreamed of Sarah again. This time she stood at the edge of a river, hair blowing wild, holding something in her arms. A child, maybe. He called out, but no voice came. Just wind and water and a distant echo, something too soft to hear but too heavy to ignore. He woke with a start, hand clutching his chest. Outside, the sky had turned pale. The girl was already up, feeding the old mare. She turned when she heard the door, eyes meeting his, then looked down at the feed bucket like it was a secret she couldn't hold much longer. The first sign came with hoof prints. Deep, fresh, and wrong. 4 sets crossing Eli's lower pasture at dawn, heading east to west, cutting clean through his fence line like they didn't give a damn. He spotted them while checking traps and knelt beside one. Iron-shod, heavy, sharp on the edges, riders who moved with weight and purpose. He followed the prints to where the fence lay, crushed rails splintered like snapped ribs. They hadn't stopped, just kept riding. When he returned to the cabin, the girl was sweeping the stoop with a pine branch. She looked up when he rode in but didn't speak, didn't move. Just watched. Eli dismounted, slow saddle creaking beneath him. "You see anyone?" She shook her head. A pause, then her eyes flicked to the horizon where the tracks had led. West, toward the canyons. That night he oiled the rifle 3 times instead of once, set the revolver beside the door. The girl watched from her stool, silent. Her locket glinted in the firelight, swinging gently as she breathed. He nodded toward it. "Who gave you that?" She looked down, thumbed it gently. No answer. Of course not. Still, something in her grip softened. A memory, maybe. Or pain. 2 days later they arrived. Just after noon, dust rose like smoke from the ridgeline. 4 riders, black dusters, wide hats, and the unmistakable brand of the split jaw stitched into their collars, a jagged white line running through a skull emblem. Eli saw them from the upper trail, stepped behind a rock, and watched them ride slow, scanning every yard like hounds catching scent. He recognized one of them, Calder Royce, tall, clean-shaven, eyes like dry bone. Calder had once been a lawman, badge and all, until the devil bought him cheap. He turned outlaw, then warlord, carving his way across the plains with a gang that specialized in fire and fear. Years ago, Eli had run reconnaissance on Royce's first hideout, got a bullet in the leg, and a lifetime's worth of regret. Now Royce was 10 feet from his gate, sitting upright like a preacher at a pulpit. Eli stepped out, slow, rifle over one shoulder, calm as cold water. "You're trespassing." Royce smiled like a wolf that's already tasted blood. "Didn't figure you'd be the one still up here, Briggs. Thought this place died with your cattle." Eli didn't smile. It nearly did. "Still breathing, though." Royce nodded, dismounted. His men followed. One leaned against the fence post, chewing sagebrush. Another kept a hand near his belt, lazy-like. "We're looking for a little girl," Royce said, voice syrupy smooth. "Came from Salt Ridge. Quiet type. Walked off with something don't belong to her." Eli didn't blink. "Ain't seen no one." That's so. Royce stepped closer, boots crunching gravel. "You know, funny thing. Word is she got taken from an auction in Dry Creek by a fella with a limp. Said he had a face like a gravestone." Eli met his eyes. "You calling me a liar?" Royce chuckled, slow and dry. "I'm calling you a man who forgets how long a road vengeance can ride." He looked past Eli toward the cabin. "Mind if we look around?" Eli's hand stayed near the rifle. "I do mind." Silence. One of Royce's men shifted. Another spat. Royce tilted his head. "This ain't over, you know that, right? I've known worse." Royce stepped back, mounted. "Next time we don't knock." And then they rode off, dust swallowing them whole. Eli watched until they disappeared. When he turned, the girl was at the door, eyes wide, not with fear but recognition. She knew Royce. That was clear. Her hands trembled around the locket. Inside, Eli packed a saddlebag. Ammo, dried meat, spare canteen. The girl sat on the cot, hugging her knees. "You gotta tell me," he said, not harsh, but urgent. "Who are they to you?" She shook her head. Just one small shake, like even trying to explain would tear something loose inside her. He sat across from her, voice low. "If they're looking for you, they'll come back. Next time with fire." Still nothing. He stood, paced. "I can get you out. Take you to Lark Hollow. Leave you with the sisters. They won't find you there." She stood, slowly walked to the door, then turned. Her eyes met his, brimming now not with tears but a fury. She didn't know how to aim. She raised her hand, pointed at the rifle on the wall, then at herself. Eli stared. "You want to fight them?" She nodded. "Once." He exhaled, rubbed his jaw. "You're a child." She stepped closer, reached up and pressed her hand over his heart. Then drew a slow circle with her finger, mimicking the split jaw brand. Over his chest. The meaning struck him like thunder. "She knows you," he whispered. The girl's eyes narrowed. She didn't just run from Royce. She had reason to hate him. And Eli for the first time wondered what truth she carried in that silence, and why Royce would send riders after one mute girl unless she'd seen, heard, or done something worth killing over. He closed the door behind her, turned the bolt, and walked to the window. The sun was low. The wind carried dust again. They had maybe one day. 2 if Royce played kind. But Eli had been waiting 10 years for a reason to pick up a rifle that mattered. Now he had one. And she was looking at him like he was the last thing between her and the devil. The mesa rose like a scar out of the desert, flat-topped and fire-colored, its edges carved by wind and time. They reached it before dawn, riding Eli's mule cart with the girl bundled in the back under sacks of grain. He'd memorized the canyon trails years ago during his guard days, narrow cuts and blind turns that only ghosts and hunted men remembered. Atop the mesa, he had built a small stone blind long ago, back when he hunted outlaws for coin. Now he used it for rabbits and regret. but it had a clear shot down both approaches and a shelter carved beneath the ledge just deep enough to hide a child. The girl didn't complain, not about the cold, not about the bruises from the wagon ride, not when Eli handed her the revolver with 3 bullets and said, "Only if you must." She nodded, tucked it under her coat, and crawled into the crevice like a shadow made of bones. Eli set traps around the trail, tripwire lines, glass shards tucked in brush, an old shotgun rigged to a taut branch. He checked his rifle 3 times. Loaded, sighted, oiled. His revolver was older, heavy in the hand, but it still fired straight. He hadn't killed a man in years, not since the war ended and the peace turned sour, but the muscle memory stayed. Killing wasn't hard. It was the silence afterward that carved you hollow. By mid-morning he saw the dust plume. 4 riders. Same black coats, same slow crawl up the trail. Royce led, hat low, shotgun slung easy across the saddle. Behind him, the grinning one, Lutz, if Eli remembered right, tossed a whiskey flask back and forth between gulps. They rode like men without fear, like death was just another river to ford. Eli waited until they passed the first trap. Wire snapped. The shotgun roared. One rider screamed and hit the ground with his leg torn clean open. The others flinched, scrambled, shouted. Eli fired. First shot caught Lutz in the shoulder. He spun out of the saddle, screamed. Second shot missed. Third hit a horse, sending the beast tumbling, its rider crushed beneath. Royce took cover behind a boulder, barked orders. "He's above, flush him out." The 4th man, face wrapped in a red bandana, tried circling left. Eli waited, breathing slow, then sent a round through his thigh. The man dropped, howling. Royce cursed, scanned the cliff, and called out, "Eli, you always were good at hiding." No answer. "You think she's worth this?" Royce shouted. "She's nothing. You don't even know what she is, do you?" Eli didn't reply, just chambered another round. Then Royce did something strange. He stood, fully exposed, hands wide. "You want to know the truth? Ask her what her mama was. Ask her what she saw. Ask her what she did." Eli's rifle twitched, but he didn't fire. Royce's voice carried like a sermon. "She's the reason Salt Ridge burned Briggs. Her mother was one of mine until she tried to leave. Took something she shouldn't have. That girl ain't mute. She's hiding from what she did." Behind Eli, a soft scrape. He turned. The girl stood at the mouth of the blind, pale, trembling. "No," Eli whispered. "Get back." But she didn't. Her eyes were locked on Royce. Royce saw her too, smiled slow. "There she is." In one motion, Royce raised his shotgun. Eli fired first. The bullet hit Royce in the shoulder, spinning him sideways. His shotgun blasted wild pellets, shaving bark off the ledge near the girl's head. She didn't move. Eli ran to her, grabbed her, pulled her down. "You all right?" he breathed. She nodded, eyes still fixed where Royce had fallen. Below, one rider tried crawling away. Another moaned, holding his gut. Royce lay flat, bleeding into the sand, one arm twitching. Eli checked the girl. No blood, just shock. He pressed her back into the crevice gently this time. "Stay here, no matter what." He walked down the trail, slow, rifle low but ready. The wind howled across the mesa like it carried the voices of the dead. Royce lay still, one leg bent, unnatural. His hat had rolled off, eyes open, lips wet with spit and blood. "You ain't law no more," Eli said, standing over him. Royce grinned through blood. "Never was. Just good at pretending." "You burned Salt Ridge," Royce coughed. "Her mother, Sarah, stole from me, thought she could hide. That girl, she lit the fuse, Briggs. You think she's innocent?" He laughed, bitter and wild. "She's got her mother's fire and yours too, I reckon." Eli's stomach twisted. "What did you say?" Royce smiled wider. "Didn't she ever tell you?" Eli stepped closer, gun still trained. "Tell me what?" Royce's grin cracked wider, red foam bubbling in his teeth. "Ask her who her father is." Eli froze. Royce's hand twitched toward his belt. Eli fired, one clean shot, right between the eyes. Silence returned. Eli lowered the rifle, breathing hard. Dust settled. The wounded rider groaned once more, then went still. Nothing moved. At the top of the mesa, the girl watched. She didn't cry, didn't flinch. just walked down to him slow and steady until she stood beside Royce's body. Eli turned to her. "Did you know him?" She nodded once. "Did he hurt you?" She didn't answer. He knelt in front of her, hands shaking. "What did he mean? About your mother?" She reached up, opened her locket. Inside was a tiny photo curled with time. A young woman, dark hair, clear eyes, Sarah. Eli's heart stopped. "Where'd you get this?" The girl pointed at herself, then her lips parted. For the first time, she whispered a word. One word. "Papa." Eli fell back like he'd been struck. The rifle clattered beside him, his breath caught in his chest. He looked at her again, really looked, and saw it now in the shape of her nose, the angle of her jaw. He had a daughter, and she had watched him kill the man who'd destroyed her mother. Her voice broke the silence again, small but steady. "Sarah was my mama." Eli's eyes stung. He tried to speak, but no words came. Just a ragged breath full of years lost and sins unpaid. He reached out, touched her hand. She didn't pull away. They buried the dead in the red sand at the base of the mesa, Eli digging with blistered hands until the sun tipped west and the sky went gray. The girl, his daughter, stood beside him, silent, watching each shovelful fall like it was a toll paid in sorrow. He didn't ask her to help. He couldn't. She'd already carried too much. When the last stone was laid over Royce's grave, Eli took his hat off and stared at the name he'd carved in the wood Calder Royce. No epitaph, no mercy. Just a name to mark where poison rotted. They lit no fire that night. No smoke, no noise. Just stars above and silence between. The girl curled beside the wagon, wrapped in Eli's old duster, her breath steady now, but her eyes never fully closed. Eli sat nearby, rifle across his knees, mind caught between past and present. He remembered Sarah's voice, the way she used to hum while oiling lantern glass, the way she'd brush his hair back when he came home dusted from the trail, and the last time he saw her standing on the train platform in Laredo, belly-rounded, tears glinting in her eyes. "You'll regret not comin' with me," she had said, voice soft but certain. He had, every day since. Now here lay the proof, a living piece of her, a child born in fire, raised in shadow, and dragged into a world that chewed innocence to bone. And Eli, he'd bought her like livestock, not knowing, not asking. A coin dropped in a barrel, a hand raised, a gesture that meant more than he could have imagined. At sunrise, they rode east, quiet, cautious, bruised. Eli avoided the main roads, choosing game trails and forgotten riverbeds. He didn't speak much. Neither did she. But in her silence now there was no fear, just weight. Truth that settled between them like shared blood. He stopped near a stream midday to rest the mule. The girl knelt beside the water, unlatched her locket, and opened it again. She turned it toward him. The photo of Sarah. On the other side, a folded corner of a second photo. Eli reached out slowly. She let him take it. Unfolded, cracked down the center, was an image of a younger man, dust-covered, squinting into the sun, arm slung around Sarah's shoulder. Eli recognized the background instantly, the jailhouse in Hollow Pike years ago. He remembered the photo being taken, some traveling preacher with a box camera and a smile like he sold forgiveness. Sarah had kept it, passed it down. The girl, his daughter, had carried it with her through flame and fear. Eli swallowed hard. "What's your name?" She hesitated. Then Lena. Lena. He let it settle in his mouth like a prayer. A name he should have known long ago. She spoke again, barely above the breeze. "Mama said you didn't know." Eli turned to her. "I didn't. If I had..." He stopped, because he couldn't promise anything. Not after the life he chose, not after leaving Sarah behind. Lena reached out, took his calloused hand, and pressed the photo into it. Then she whispered, "She loved you." It broke something open in him. Not like glass, like ice. Slow and deep. They camped that night in a dry arroyo. Eli cleaned her feet, wrapped her blisters, braided her hair in quiet focus. She let him. Didn't flinch. Just watched him, eyes soft, now open. Like the child she was always meant to be. In the firelight, he told her about Sarah. About the saloon, the dancing, the dreams they shared. He told her about the war, the regrets, the days he tried to forget but couldn't. He didn't hide his failures. She listened, eyes wide, hands in her lap, a silent witness to a man tearing open his chest and laying every sin bare. When he finished, she spoke once more. Royce killed Mama. It wasn't a question. Eli nodded. Yes, and the others, they won't come. She looked into the fire. I wanted to kill him. Eli watched her. That's not wrong. She met his gaze, but I didn't. He nodded slowly. That's not wrong either. She reached into her coat, pulled the revolver he gave her earlier. Unfired. She set it between them. Eli understood. She had made her choice. Violence wasn't her path, not anymore. At dawn, he gave her a choice. We can head to Lark Hollow, start over. I'll find work something steady, or we ride far, someplace no one knows us. Your call. She thought for a long time. Then she pointed east, where the sun broke through the clouds like gold cracking stone. Eli smiled for the first time in years. It wasn't peace yet, but it was a beginning. They rode until the mesa disappeared behind them, and neither looked back. By the time they reached the outskirts of Lark Hollow, Eli's fever had worsened. It started the morning after they crossed the snake flats, a sharp ache behind his ribs, then cold sweats through the night. He told Lena it was nothing, just age, just dust in the lungs. But by the third day, he couldn't mount the horse without help. His breath came shallow. The color left his face. They made camp under a dry willow just outside the mission fence. The sisters would take her, he knew. They took everyone, even men like him, when he brought in broken pieces of other lives for repair. Lena helped him down, tucked the blanket under his legs, and sat beside him. She didn't cry, but her hand stayed in his, small and strong and warm. Eli reached into his coat, pulled out a piece of wood, carved, smooth, oval-shaped, sanded on both sides. On it, etched with a knife, was one word: Briggs. He pressed it into her hand. This is yours now. She stared at it. Then him. I don't want to go without you. He gave a half smile. You've already gone through more than most ever do, but now you walk forward, you hear me. Her lips trembled. Will I see you again? Eli looked out across the prairie, golden now with sunset. In every quiet place, he said, in the wind, in the saddle's sway, when you close your eyes and ride. He leaned back, breath slowing. Lena sat with him until his hand went still. She didn't scream. She didn't call out. She stayed there, holding his hand until the stars opened wide. By morning, the sisters found her sitting upright, wrapped in the old duster, the name Briggs clenched in her palm. She said nothing but followed them into the chapel, Boots' dusty eyes fixed ahead. Years later, folks would whisper about the silent girl who grew into a strong, patient woman, the one who taught broken children to ride, who never raised her voice but whose stare could settle any storm. She never married, never left Lark Hollow, but every year she'd ride alone to Glass Mesa, tie her horse near the edge, sit in silence until dusk. And when she left, she always left behind the same thing. A single empty saddle, facing east, waiting for someone riding home. If this story moved you, there's more where it came from. Subscribe for more true grit Western tales where silence speaks louder than gunfire and redemption rides alone.